My father looked me dead in the eyes on my 21st birthday, raised his champagne glass in front of 200 guests, and said the words that changed everything. Your brother Damon will inherit our $85 million empire. You, Caleb, you get nothing. You were always the mistake. The crystal chandelier in our family's ballroom seemed to dim as those words hit me. Every face in that crowd turned to stare, some with pity, most with that particular brand of satisfaction people get from witnessing someone else's public humiliation. The champagne flute in my hand suddenly weighed 1,000 pounds. To Damon Sterling, my father's voice boomed across the marble halls, the son who will take Sterling Automotive Group into the next century. The applause was deafening. My brother Damon stood there in his tailored Armani suit, that practiced smile spreading across his face like he'd rehearsed this moment his whole life, which, knowing my family, he probably had. And as a small token of my confidence, Dad continued, pulling out a red Ferrari key fob, the first of many victories to come. He tossed those keys through the air in a perfect arc. Damon caught them one-handed, smooth as silk. Of course he did. Damon never dropped anything, never stumbled, never failed. That was my job, apparently. Speech! Speech! Someone shouted from the back. Harrison Blackwood, Dad's golf buddy and CEO of the largest bank in the state. They all wanted to hear from the chosen son. Damon raised his glass, his wedding ring catching the light. I promise to honor the Sterling legacy and triple our value within 5 years, because that's what Sterlings do. We win. More applause. My girlfriend Vanessa's hand slipped from mine. When I looked at her, she was already stepping away, her eyes avoiding mine like poverty was contagious. Caleb, she whispered not quietly enough, I'm sorry, but I need to think about my future. She walked straight to Damon to congratulate him. The metaphor was so obvious it hurt. My legs moved on autopilot, carrying me through the crowd. Each step felt like walking through wet cement. Conversations stopped mid-sentence as I passed. These people who'd known me since I was born, who'd attended my high school graduation, who'd sent Christmas cards with my name on them, now looked through me like I was already a ghost. Always knew Richard would make the right choice, Judge Coleman muttered to his wife. The boy never had the Sterling fire, someone else added. Probably for the best. Can you imagine Caleb running anything? Outside, the October air hit my lungs like ice water. The valet kids were all admiring the new Ferrari, its engine purring like a satisfied predator. They scrambled when they saw me, probably wondering if they should bother getting my beat-up Honda or just let me walk. That's when she appeared. A woman in her 60s, wearing a coat that probably cost more than most people's cars, standing perfectly still by the garden, fountain like she'd been waiting there all night. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and focused entirely on me. Caleb Sterling? If you're here for the party, the winner's inside getting his crown polished. She didn't smile. Instead, she reached into her coat and pulled out a manila envelope, thick and sealed with red wax. Your mother asked me to give this to you on your 21st birthday. She knew this day would come. The envelope felt warm in my hands, like it had been waiting 9 years to be delivered. My mother's been dead since I was 12. Vivian Sterling was many things, but unprepared wasn't one of them. She stepped closer, and I could smell expensive perfume, the kind Mom used to wear. Read it, then decide if you want to remain the mistake or become the solution. She turned to leave, then paused. Your mother also wanted me to tell you something. She said you'd understand when the time came. She looked back at me, and for just a second I could have sworn I saw my mother's eyes looking through hers. Show them who you really are. The woman disappeared into a black Mercedes that had been idling in the shadows. The license plate read Aldridge 1. That name hit me like a lightning bolt. Aldridge. My mother's maiden name. The family my father never talked about. The relatives who never came to visit. The grandparents I'd never met. I stood there in the driveway of my father's mansion, holding an envelope that suddenly felt like it contained the weight of my entire future. Behind me, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see my family's party continuing without me. Damon had his arm around our father's shoulders. They were laughing at something, probably already planning their conquest of the automotive world. They had no idea that Mom, quiet and gentle Mom who died of cancer without ever raising her voice, had been playing a longer game. They had no idea that the mistake they'd just discarded was about to become their biggest problem. I broke the wax seal. Inside, my mother's handwriting stared back at me as clear and precise as if she'd written it yesterday. My dearest Caleb, if you're reading this, your father has finally shown his true colors. It's time you learned the truth about the Sterling Empire and your real inheritance. Everything you've been told is a lie. Everything except my love for you. The USB drive contains proof. Gerald Whitman at Whitman & Associates has been waiting for your call for 9 years. The number is below. Call him tonight. Don't wait until morning. Your father will try to lock you out of everything by dawn. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you while I was alive, but I've made sure I can protect you now. Show them that the quiet ones are the ones who change the world. All my love, forever and always, Mom. My hands weren't shaking anymore. For the first time in my 21 years of life, they were perfectly, absolutely steady. The mistake? I smiled for the first time that night. The mistake was theirs. The Sterling family dynasty wasn't built on luck or love. It was built on calculated moves and crushing anyone who got in the way. That's what my grandfather Tobias always said, usually while teaching Damon chess in the library while I watched from the doorway, never invited to play. Our empire started 70 years ago with one repair shop in downtown Detroit. Tobias Sterling fixed cars with his bare hands, slept in the back office, and ate beans from a can until he saved enough to buy the building next door. By the time my father Richard took over, we had 12 dealerships across Michigan. But Dad wasn't satisfied with regional success. He wanted an empire. Comfort is the enemy of greatness, he'd announce at dinner, cutting his steak with surgical precision. Remember that, Damon. Always Damon. Never me. My brother was 3 years older and 30 years more prepared for the life Dad had mapped out for him. Harvard Business School, internships at Fortune 500 companies, a marriage to Bethany Cromwell, whose father sat on the Senate Banking Committee. Every move Damon made was strategic, like he was playing chess with life itself and always thinking 6 moves ahead. Me? I went to community college for 2 semesters before dropping out. Not because I was failing, but because I was acing my engineering courses so easily that professors accused me of cheating. Nobody understands quantum mechanics intuitively like this, Professor Chen had said, holding up my perfect exam. Who did you copy from? When I couldn't name a source because there wasn't one, they made my life hell. Dad's response when I came home? Maybe you're just not college material, Caleb. We can't all be Damon. So I took a job in our back office, managing inventory systems that hadn't been updated since the 90s. Within 6 months, I'd written new software that tracked every part, predicted demand patterns, and saved us $400,000 annually. Dad's response? That's what we pay you for. But Mom had been different. Vivian Sterling, born Vivian Aldridge, was the quietest person in any room, and somehow also the most important. She had this way of solving problems before anyone else even realized they existed. When Dad was stumped by the Japanese manufacturers refusing to meet with him, Mom made one phone call and suddenly we had exclusive distribution rights for 3 luxury brands. How did you do that? Dad had asked her. I asked nicely, she'd said, sipping her tea. What she didn't mention was that her father had saved the CEO's father during the Korean War. The Aldridge family had connections that went back generations, old money and older favors, the kind of power that didn't need to announce itself. Mom died when I was 12. Pancreatic cancer, they said. 6 weeks from diagnosis to funeral. The last real conversation we had, she was lying in the hospital bed, her hand cold in mine. "Caleb, you have my mind," she'd whispered. "Your father will never see it because he only values what makes noise. But the quiet rivers run deepest. Remember that." "Mom, you're scaring me. I'm preparing you. There's a difference." She squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "When you turn 21, everything will make sense. Until then, survive. Watch, learn, and never let them see how much you understand." After she died, the house became a monument to Damon's achievements. His trophies lined the mantel. His photos covered the walls. His acceptance letters were framed in Dad's office. I became the ghost that did the accounting, fixed the computers, and solved problems nobody else wanted to touch. Uncle Preston tried to help when he could. He was Dad's younger brother, the one who'd gone to art school instead of business school, the family disappointment until his advertising agency started handling campaigns for presidential candidates. "Your father's an ass," Preston told me once after 3 whiskeys at Thanksgiving. "But he's a successful ass, which makes him dangerous. You're smarter than all of us, kid. One day he'll realize it. And if he doesn't, then you'll show him." The Sterling way. Even Grandpa Tobias, 93 and barely coherent most days, occasionally had moments of clarity that cut deep. "You look like her," he'd said last Christmas, grabbing my wrist with his skeleton hands. "Like Vivian. Got those Aldrich eyes. Richard hates those eyes." The family dinners were performances where I always forgot my lines. Damon would discuss acquisitions and mergers while Bethany smiled her practiced smile. Dad would nod approvingly, occasionally adding his own war stories from the business world. I'd sit there, invisible, calculating the exact profit margins they were discussing, but knowing my input wasn't wanted. The Sterling Empire now spanned 47 dealerships across 5 states, sold everything from economy cars to Lamborghinis, and generated $85 million in annual revenue. It was everything my father had dreamed of. And according to him, I deserved none of it. The birthday party was supposed to be mine, but from the moment I arrived, I knew it had become something else entirely. The Sterling estate had been transformed into a coronation hall. Ice sculptures of luxury cars decorated every corner. A string quartet played in the main foyer. The guest list read like a Forbes directory of automotive industry power players. "There's the birthday boy," Harrison Blackwood called out, already 3 scotches deep. 21 years old. Your father must be planning something special." He knew. They all knew. The sympathetic glances, the awkward pauses when I approached conversations, the way they kept checking their phones like they were waiting for something to happen. This wasn't my party. It was my execution. Dad stood at the center of it all, commanding the room the way he commanded boardrooms. Richard Sterling at 62 was still intimidating. Silver, hair slicked back, shoulders broad, that smile that never quite reached his eyes. He was holding court with the mayor, 2 federal judges, and the president of the State Banking Association. "Caleb," he called out when he saw me. "Come here, son." The word son sounded wrong in his mouth, like he was speaking a foreign language he'd never quite mastered. I walked over, noting how the crowd parted, creating a stage for whatever was about to happen. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dad began, tapping his champagne glass. The room fell silent immediately. 21 years ago, I made a decision that changed my life. I had another son. The pause was deliberate, theatrical, cruel. Some decisions we make define us. Others remind us why we must be more careful. He looked directly at me. "Caleb has been with the company for 3 years now, working in our back office, and that experience has taught me something valuable." My stomach dropped. Vanessa squeezed my hand, but it felt more like she was anchoring herself than supporting me. Not everyone is meant to lead. Not everyone has the Sterling fire. And that's okay. He raised his glass higher. which is why I'm proud to announce that Damon will be taking over as CEO of Sterling Automotive Group, effective immediately. The room exploded. Champagne corks popped like gunfire. People rushed to congratulate Damon, who was already shaking hands and accepting praise with the ease of someone who'd been expecting this moment his entire life. "But Dad," I started, my voice lost in the noise. He turned to me, and for once, his smile was genuine. "You get nothing, Caleb. You were always the mistake. A moment of weakness when your mother convinced me we needed another child. But at least we got Damon first." The words hit me like physical blows. Around us, people weren't even pretending not to listen anymore. This was blood in the water, and they were all sharks. "Richard, perhaps this conversation should be private," Uncle Preston suggested, appearing at my elbow. "No, Preston. The boy needs to hear this publicly. He needs to understand his place." Dad pulled out the Ferrari keys, the fob catching the light like a ruby. "Damon, your first acquisition as CEO." He tossed the keys in that perfect arc. The crowd actually applauded the throw, like it was some kind of performance art. Damon caught them, of course, and held them up like a trophy. "Thank you, Dad. I promise to double our value within 5 years." "Triple it," someone shouted. "Triple it then." Damon laughed. "Why not? We're Sterlings." Vanessa's hand disappeared from mine. When I turned, she was already halfway to Damon, her Versace heels clicking against the marble like a countdown to betrayal. "Congratulations, Damon," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You'll be amazing." She didn't look back at me. Not once. Aunt Lorraine, Dad's sister who ran a hedge fund in New York, whispered to her husband just loud enough for me to hear. "Finally." Richard's cutting the dead weight. Smart move. Even Grandpa Tobias, propped up in his wheelchair by the fireplace, managed to mutter, "Should have been just one son. Just Damon." I stood there in the center of my own birthday party, invisible and radioactive at the same time. People moved around me like I was furniture, already discussing Damon's plans for expansion, his vision for the future, his brilliant strategic mind. "The inventory system Caleb created saved us nearly $500,000, Uncle Preston said loudly, trying to help. "A monkey could manage inventory," Dad responded. "Leaders create empires. Followers count cars." The laughter that followed sounded like breaking glass. I walked through the crowd, each step feeling like I was sinking into quicksand. The valet kids at the door were all gathered around the Ferrari, taking photos, living vicariously through my brother's success. Behind me, I heard Dad's voice one more time. "To the future of Sterling Automotive? To Damon? To winners?" The cheers followed me into the night. The woman stood by the fountain like she'd been carved from the night itself. Her coat was cashmere, dark blue, probably worth more than my Honda. Her silver hair was pulled back in a perfect chignon, and her eyes were the exact shade of green I saw in the mirror every morning. Aldridge eyes, Grandpa Tobias had called them. "Caleb Sterling?" Her voice was cultured, careful, like someone who'd learned that words could be weapons if you knew how to use them. "If you're here for the party, the winner's inside getting his crown polished." She didn't smile. Instead, she reached into her coat with deliberate precision and pulled out a manila envelope, thick as a book, sealed with red wax that bore a crest I'd seen only once before, on the back of my mother's jewelry box. "Your mother asked me to give this to you on your 21st birthday. She knew this day would come." The envelope was warm, like it had been waiting against her body for hours, maybe years. My mother's been dead since I was 12. Vivian Sterling was many things, but unprepared wasn't one of them. She stepped closer, and I caught the scent of Chanel number 5, my mother's perfume. "Read it. Then decide if you want to remain the mistake or become the solution." "Who are you?" "Agnes Aldridge, your mother's cousin, the executor of her real will." She turned toward a black Mercedes idling in the shadows. "She also wanted me to tell you something. She said you'd understand when the time came. Show them who you really are." The Mercedes disappeared into the night, leaving me holding an envelope that suddenly felt like it contained the weight of the world. I sat down on the fountain's edge and broke the seal. My mother's handwriting hit me like a physical presence. My dearest Caleb, if you're reading this, your father has finally shown his true colors. It's time you learned the truth about the Sterling Empire and your real inheritance. Everything you've been told is a lie, everything except my love for you. The Sterling Automotive Group wasn't built by your father. It was built by me. Every innovation that took us from regional to national, every patent that gave us an edge, every connection that opened international doors came from the Aldrich family. Your father was a good salesman who married into genius and claimed it as his own. The hybrid engine design that made us millions, I developed it during my MIT graduate program. The connection with Japanese manufacturers, my father's war contacts, the land our flagship dealership sits on, Aldrich property for 6 generations. I stayed silent because I loved him, and I wanted you boys to have a father you could respect. But I also kept records. Everything is documented, every patent in my name, every property held in Aldrich family trusts, every innovation time-stamped and notarized. The USB drive contains it all. Gerald Whitman at Whitman & Associates has been waiting for your call for 9 years. He has the original documents. The number is below. Call him tonight. Don't wait until morning. Your father will try to lock you out of everything by dawn. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you while I was alive, but I've made sure I can protect you now. The quiet ones are the ones who change the world. Show them that brilliance doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, "All my love, forever and always, Mom." My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and dialed the number. It rang once. Whitman & Associates, Gerald speaking. I've been expecting your call, Mr. Sterling. How did you know it was me? Your mother said you'd call exactly at this time, on this date. Vivian was never wrong about anything. His voice was kind but urgent. Can you meet me at my office in an hour? We have significant legal matters to discuss. It's nearly midnight. Your mother paid me to be available 24 hours a day for the next week. She anticipated your father would act on your birthday. She also anticipated he'd try to transfer assets immediately after. We have until market open Monday morning to execute her contingency plan. The drive to downtown took 30 minutes. I spent it listening to the USB drive on my car's system. My mother's voice filled the Honda, recorded just weeks before her death. She detailed everything. Every patent filed under her maiden name, every property held in Aldrich trusts, every document proving that the Sterling Empire was built on Aldrich foundations. Gerald Whitman's office occupied the top floor of the Cromwell building. He was waiting in the conference room with 3 other lawyers and boxes of documents that stretched across a table meant for 20 people. Mr. Sterling, he stood, extending his hand. Your mother was the most brilliant woman I've ever met. She knew this day would come, and she prepared for every contingency. What am I looking at here? Your inheritance, the real one. 51% of Sterling Automotive Group, held in an Aldrich family trust that transfers to you today. Your father owns 30%. Damon owns nothing. He never did. That's impossible. Dad built the company. Gerald smiled sadly. Your father built the image. Your mother built the empire. And she made sure that when the time came, it would pass to the son who inherited her mind, not the one who inherited his father's cruelty. Monday morning arrived like a scheduled execution. The Sterling Automotive Group boardroom had been decorated for a coronation, with fresh flowers and champagne already chilling in buckets. Damon stood at the head of the table in his best suit, practicing his first speech as CEO, while Dad watched with pride that bordered on worship. The board members were all there. Harrison Blackwood, Judge Coleman, Senator Cromwell, and 6 other titans of industry who'd helped build our empire. They were laughing at something Damon had said about trimming the fat from operations. I knew he meant me. I walked in at exactly 9 a.m. with Gerald Whitman and 3 federal attorneys. The laughter died instantly. "What the hell is this?" Dad's face went from confident to confused in seconds. "Security!" Damon barked, but the guards didn't move. Gerald had already briefed them in the lobby. "Gentlemen," Gerald began, setting his briefcase on the table with deliberate calm, "I'm here to inform you that there's been a change in ownership of Sterling Automotive Group. Mr. Caleb Sterling is now majority shareholder, effective immediately." The silence was so complete I could hear the champagne bubbles popping. "This is ridiculous." Dad stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "I own this company. I built it from nothing." "Actually, Mr. Sterling, you own 30%. Gerald pulled out a stack of documents 3 inches thick. "Your wife, Vivian Sterling, née Aldridge, owned 51% through a series of trusts established before your marriage. These shares transferred to Caleb on his 21st birthday, as per her will. Vivian never owned any shares." "I would know." "Would you?" I spoke for the first time, walking to the presentation screen. "Did you know about the Aldridge Motors patents she filed in 1998? The ones for the hybrid engine design that generated $40 million in revenue?" I clicked the remote. Patent documents filled the screen, all bearing my mother's maiden name. "Did you know that our flagship dealership sits on Aldridge family land, leased to Sterling Automotive for $1 per year, renewable only at the discretion of the Aldridge estate?" Another click. "Land deeds dating back to 1892. Did you know that every major innovation that took us from regional to national came from her MIT engineering thesis, which she published under V. Aldridge?" The thesis appeared on screen, with diagrams that matched exactly the designs our company had used for years. "This is fraud." Damon finally found his voice. "You're fabricating evidence." Mr. Damon Sterling, one of the federal attorneys, stepped forward. "We've verified every document. We're actually here investigating your father for potential intellectual property theft and fraud. Ms. Vivian Sterling filed sealed complaints with our office 9 years ago to be opened upon her son Caleb's 21st birthday." Dad collapsed into his chair. "Vivian wouldn't do this." "She loved me." "She did love you," I admitted, pulling out Mom's final letter. "She loved you enough to stay quiet while she was alive. But she loved her sons more. Should I read what she wrote about you?" "Please don't," Dad's voice cracked. I read it anyway. "Richard will destroy Caleb the same way his father destroyed his brother Thomas. It's the Sterling way, one son to build up, one son to tear down. I won't let history repeat itself. Caleb has my mind, my innovation, my ability to see 10 steps ahead. He'll build something greater than Richard ever could, but only if I protect him from his father's fear of being surpassed." "She knew?" Uncle Preston asked, stunned. "About Uncle Thomas?" I turned to Preston. "She knew everything. How Grandpa Tobias drove his younger son to suicide by constantly comparing him to Dad. How Dad was repeating the pattern with Damon and me, how this family always needs a winner and a loser." "So, what now?" Harrison Blackwood asked. "You're going to destroy everything?" "No, I'm going to build something better." I turned to the board. Damon keeps his position as head of traditional operations. He's excellent at it, and I don't punish competence. Dad gets a generous retirement package and an advisory role if he wants it. Uncle Preston becomes CEO of day-to-day operations. "And you?" Senator Cromwell asked. "I'm taking Mom's patents in the R&D division. We're going electric. Full conversion within 5 years. Sterling electric vehicles. We're going to revolutionize the industry the same way Mom revolutionized it 20 years ago, except this time, and Aldridge gets the credit." "You can't do this," Dad whispered. "I already have. The board vote was unanimous via proxy. Turns out when you own 51% and have federal fraud investigators in the room, people become very cooperative." Gerald placed the final document in front of Dad. "Your signature, Mr. Sterling, agreeing to the transition." Dad's hand shook as he signed. Vivian played the long game. "No, Dad," I said, taking the pen from his trembling fingers. She played the only game that mattered. She protected her son from his father, just like she promised she would. 3 years have passed since that Monday morning when I walked into the boardroom with the truth in my briefcase and my mother's genius as my armor. Sterling Electric Vehicles is now worth $500 million, with manufacturing plants in Michigan, Tennessee, and California. We went from 0 to the 4th largest electric vehicle manufacturer in North America, and we did it using designs my mother created decades ago, finally given the respect they deserved. Damon runs the traditional dealership division, and here's the plot twist nobody saw coming. He's brilliant at it. Without the pressure of competing with me for Dad's approval, without the weight of being the only son who mattered, he actually became the businessman he was always meant to be. His division's profits are up 40%. Last week we had lunch at the same restaurant where he used to meet clients while I waited in the car. "You know what's funny?" he said, spinning his wedding ring. "I spent my whole life trying to be Dad. You spent yours trying not to be him. Somehow, you ended up more successful. We both ended up successful, Damon. That's what Mom wanted. She really planned all of this. Every move. She knew Dad would betray me publicly. She knew you'd take the Ferrari keys. She even knew Vanessa would leave me at the party." "About Vanessa," Damon started. "She came back," I interrupted. 6 months after the takeover, she showed up at my office with apologies and promises. Told me she always believed in me. "What did you say?" "I told her belief isn't something you can turn on and off based on someone's bank account." Then I introduced her to my assistant and asked him to escort her out. Damon actually laughed. Mom would have loved that. I married Elena Whitman last spring. We met during those long legal sessions, her helping her father organize documents while I learned just how thoroughly my mother had protected me. Elna jokes that our first date was destroying my father's empire over coffee and depositions. She's wrong. We weren't destroying anything. We were building something new from blueprints my mother left behind. Dad took the forced retirement harder than anyone expected. For 6 months, he didn't speak to me. Then one day, he showed up at my office with a box of Mom's things he'd kept locked in his safe. "I found more patents," he said quietly. "Designs for solar-powered charging stations." She drew them in 1995. We spent that afternoon going through her notebooks, seeing innovations that were 20 years ahead of their time. Dad cried when we found her journal entry about why she stayed quiet. Richard needs to be the king. But Caleb needs to be the future. I can give them both what they need if I'm patient enough. She loved us both, Dad said. In different ways, for different reasons, but she loved us both. He teaches business ethics at the university now, court-mandated community service that became his actual calling. Last week, he introduced me at a conference as his son, the visionary CEO who saved Sterling Automotive from obsolescence. No irony, no bitterness, just truth. Uncle Preston runs day-to-day operations with the creativity Dad never let him express. He turned our showrooms into experiential centers where people don't just buy cars, they experience the future of transportation. Sales are up 60% since he took over. But the biggest surprise came from Agnes Aldridge, the woman who handed me the envelope that night. She wasn't just Mom's cousin and the executor of her will. She was the keeper of the entire Aldridge legacy, a fortune in old money and older secrets that made the Sterling Empire look like a lemonade stand. "Your mother was the rebellious one," Agnes told me over tea at the Aldridge estate, a mansion that made Dad's look like a guest house. "She fell in love with your father and wanted to build something with him, not inherit something from us. But she always knew how to protect what mattered. Last month, while digitizing old files, I found one more letter from Mom. This one was addressed to both Damon and me, to be opened only after everything else had settled. My dear boys, if you're reading this together, then my plan worked. You've both found your places without destroying each other. The sterling curse of father against son, brother against brother ends with you. Build together what I couldn't build alone. Love each other the way I loved you both. Completely, but differently, because you needed different things. The mistake was never Caleb. The mistake was believing only one son could succeed. Prove me right. All my love, Mom. We framed it. It hangs in the conference room where we meet every Monday to plan the future of Sterling Automotive together. The mistake was never me. The mistake was underestimating a mother's love and a quiet son's ability to roar when cornered. Some empires are built on conquest. Others are built on redemption. But the best ones? They're built on the patient plans of someone who loved you enough to save you from a distance. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been the underestimated one in your family, the forgotten child, the mistake who became the solution, then hit that like button and share this video. Comment below with your own story of proving them wrong, and subscribe to this channel for more stories about underdogs who became unstoppable, about families who found their way back to each other, and about the quiet ones who changed everything. Remember, success is the best revenge, but family is the only legacy that matters.